Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers. Your host, Ben Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv, and we're 2 days out from 2013, and we're ending the year on a very somber note for my family. I want to give mention and prayer and send love and honor and gratitude to my father-in-law, or what is closest to my being a father-in-law that I've ever had, Bert, and to Cynthia and to Stacy and her family as they're gathered together in honor of Bert, Justin's grandfather, and Justin, I know, wished that he could have been there with family, but he was unable to. He's serving active duty in military, and so his not able to be with the family, but I know he's there in spirit. And so I just wanted to share a poem for Bert and for the family. To my brother, father-in-law, mentor, and friend, Bert, all have gathered to pay respects, to wish you well in Thanksgiving, for all the years that you have so selflessly given of yourself to raise the many lost souls you found looking up to you for guidance. Never one to say no. You and your wife Cynthia were, are, and have been the bedrock, anchor, and foundation of stability for so many of us that have relied on your assistance over the years while wayward and rebellious pursuits. You are the best of men, a shining example of goodness and decency for all of those that have followed your lead. Know that we have learned well from your example. I pray we are able to live up to your standard, care for each other and one another the way that the Father would have us to do one unto another. Your rewards are in heaven. Fear nothing. You fought the good fight, enduring overwhelming struggle. Know now that the angels of righteousness await to bring you home. Enduring struggle to raise family and beauty the best way you knew how. Paradise awaits your return as it does us all. We will all be together again without doubt, nor will it be long. We love you, Bert. One of the best men I've ever known. A father, mentor, and grandfather to so many. Thank you for helping to raise my son. He is a reflection of you as part of life and legacy. Almost home. Say hello to my parents and to our recently passed friends, loved ones. We love you all and will dearly miss you in your parting. Our only comfort, knowing that reunion is not long in coming. The Father and the Son celebrate your return with merriment, peace, and rejoicing. They too have missed you in parting. God bless you, Bert. And so I appreciate everybody joining us for today's broadcast. I'm going to be speaking about the Brotherhood of Darkness and to cover what is the beginning of the secret societies and those powers that have aligned and organized themselves against humanity. That seek at every turn to harm the collective will in the struggle of the masses. Especially now, with the world being plunged into financial terror and the darkness of what seems like impending economic collapse. And at least stagnation to the point where people are restless because they have no hope, because they have no jobs and no way of providing for their families and for taking part in society and culture and for giving back in some way and providing a service, a benefit to humanity. Everybody, wants to be good in some way at something that you can put your energy and devote your time to, that will provide enough money to sustain life and comfort in such way that struggle is largely unnecessary, or not unnecessary, but unnecessary in such way that one is putting themselves at risk just trying to make it and manage. Whether that's by having to do jobs that risk, your health and well-being, or whether you have to put yourself in an environment where over time without a doubt that you are putting yourself at risk. And so now, with what has been imposed upon the world, with the standard of living having been degraded in such a way that the wealth of the economies of the world have been stripped away and stolen, and in the process, the retirements, the hopes and the dreams of so many people have been dashed. The inheritances of so many youths have been dashed, and now they see nothing but the smoking remnants of what used to be a society that provided well for its people. And because of the austerity measures, and because they know that the criminals have not been charged in any way, and that the politicians are in bed with them, and that the measures are being forced upon them without their opinions or without their, without their active participation, that their lives are being put at risk. And that this is coming home to America, people. We're 2 days. In 2 days, we, as a country, go over the fiscal cliff. And this is the point of recognizable no return for the American economy and for the government's ability to pay back its debt. And so this will be the death spiral for America, because what happens when your creditors no longer have faith in your ability to pay back on the loans you have procured, and they think you're going to default, your rating gets cut and dropped, and your ability to borrow money, especially cheaply, which this has been a very low interest environment, and this is being done purposely. All this low interest debt that is being incurred right now, the reason they are lavishing all this debt on all these nations at such low interest is because when the defaults start happening and the credit ratings start to decimate, and countries are forced to borrow money at higher interest rates, it's going to devastate economies. Devastate economies. Jazz says those in power are pure evil. It's all a game. And she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right, people. You have to realize that we're dealing with a matrix. We are living in a matrix, and what has been brought up as real world, the 9 to 5, the corporate, the whole consumerism and materialism and growth, endless growth, importing and exporting and trade, and how that would sustain and provide a better world and fulfill everybody's hopes and dreams. It's that whole dream is failing. The American dream, the material dream, the global dream that they presented to everybody everywhere, the capitalism and the idea that everybody can be wealthy and prosperous at the expense of environment and creatures and even ourselves. The dream is breaking down. And it's about time, really, because you can't do that as a creature. You cannot overconsume and destroy everything you touch. You have to have respect for the environment that you live in and that you depend upon. Now, when I talk about environmentalism, I am not talking about like sustainability to the point that, they want to depopulate the world and their answer for saving the environment is to get rid of the people, because that's the extremism of, environmentalism and green, being green, is that the green agenda really at the top side, even like the World Wildlife Federation, Greenpeace, these different organizations, they have been funded and created and are controlled by the elitists. Even like the United Nations, the elites fund, organize, and create and build up these organizations so that they have reputation. And after they have long history, after they've been in existence for enough time, they have instant credibility. And so it's controlled from the top down. Most industries are also funded, created, and controlled by the elites. We're talking, and the kind of power that we're speaking about as far as the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Illuminati, the New World Order, the eye at the top of the pyramid, is that they print the money. Look at your money. It's everywhere marked by Masonic symbolism. Order out of chaos, the New World Order, Novus Ordo Seclorum. The even all the symbolism. There's the owl that is encoded within the Bohemian Grove owl. Moloch, the Babylonian god that the fallen angels have demanded sacrifice to, and that the bloodlines of the elites, even to this day, dedicate and sacrifice innocent children to support the agenda of the New World Order. And they do such rituals to keep themselves in power as well. not only that, but they are involved in very sick and pedophilic and sadistic rites, and that they will abuse even newborn children. That's how sick, demented, and warped they are. But you also have to remember that at the highest levels of the Illuminati, of the royal elitist bloodlines, those that, through the centuries, given generational families dedicated to the agenda and dedicated to the bloodlines of Lucifer and Cain and Nimrod, that they are evil and wickedly evil and dedicated to such evil that they give themselves to the possession of these interdimensional reptilian shape-shifting beings, and that it shows itself through the black magic and the ritual of the werewolves and the vampires and those high-level Satanists and Luciferians that are possessed by these beings and that are embodied by these particular beings. And so that's why they are evil, because they are in truth. They are the embodiments of the rebel angels, or those fallen ones that so long ago abandoned their first estate and have become the terrors of darkness, that have become the forces of Lucifer, the forces of Satan. And this is the Brotherhood of Darkness. And I want to let you know how far this goes back, just to give you an idea from a text. And I've read this many times, and I've made mention of it here on this show, but we have a lot of new listeners. And I'm also going to go back and answer a question. I guess we should go ahead and touch that first. We're going to answer this question. A reader or a listener had sent in a question asking me about the fall of Adam and Eve and whether they were created as light beings or physical flesh beings. And that this person says, according to the Bible and the Old Testament and the New Testament, just the regular KJV, King James Version of the Bible, and the regular canon, that according to the text, that Adam and Eve were made physical and that they were made on the earth. And, of course, you know my work. For those of you that do know my work, I've put forth the premise and backed it with many, many scriptures. And, I've written a whole couple books about all this, and there's really so much, because I use, so much scripture to back up what I bring forth, that I didn't want to rehash all that. But anyways, I'm going to touch upon that here for just a little bit. Most people do believe exactly that. And most people that have read only the 66 books of the King James Version of the Bible, they also believe that same premise, that we were made as flesh beings and that we were put on the planet, and that was that. But my whole contention, and if you study, and I'm, all the other texts, it brings forth a little bit more details. It gives you a little more understanding. And the way that I bring forth the story and unveil it to you and explain it to you, and in my mind, it only could have happened this way because this premise explains all the other pieces and parts of the puzzle as well that yet remain unclear for those that, see it that way, as us only being created as flesh beings and only created here on the earth. And the reason I say so is because when we ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that caused us to fall, and it caused a consequence, and it caused an action-reaction type scenario. So once Adam and Eve ate of that fruit, it reflected in something that happened to them. And according to the text, it says that their eyes were open, they believed themselves to be as gods, and that they then were stripped of their bright natures. And according to the text, Eve would, give birth, Adam would have to work the soil, and there would then be enmity between the seed of Satan and the seed of Adam and Eve. That's Genesis chapter 3. But now, in the fulfillment of the text, because I bring this out from many, many, many different texts, I explain to you, and explain this in the work, how it was that what is spoken about in Genesis chapter 3, that is prophecy. That is something that is going to happen to Adam and Eve and the serpent as a result of their eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and being seduced and tempted by the serpent. And that all these things would then be fulfilled once they were transformed into flesh. That they lost their bright natures and they fell from this light form. And it also speaks about in many of the texts, and there's so many of them, I can't relay them all here to you. I've done them many times in many shows. You can listen to all the different shows I've done on Adam and Eve, the first, loss of bright natures, fall from paradise, eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. All these shows cover this issue. And so Adam and Eve, when they ate of this fruit, they were then banished from paradise. And to get a lot of detail on this, you can read there's a collection, the Forbidden Books of the Bible, the Forgotten Books of Eden, the first and second book of Adam and Eve. It gives specifics and details how it was that they lost their bright natures and how it was that their bodies were transformed into flesh. And I've done many shows specifically about those transformations, what it is exactly that occurred to them, how it was that they then began, before they didn't even walk, so the whole act of walking was strange to them when they were kicked out of paradise and put into the wilderness of the earth, that they had to drink water and to eat, and they began to eat figs. They had to work the soil, and Eve, after she was in flesh form, after she was transformed into flesh, and this was something that occurred on the 8th day, and I explain all this too because there's a whole nother series and collections of work from the Nag Hammadi collection, which is a collection of works that were given to the apostles after the death and resurrection of Christ, when he went into the fullness of his glory, sat on the right hand of God, and then came back to his apostles and for 40 days taught them all the revelations without parable and without secrecy. And that's why I think these books should be read and are important, because they give detail on what that instruction was. Aren't you interested in knowing what it is that Christ told his apostles when he came back after his resurrection and after he had descended into Sheol and freed the patriarchs and took them back up into paradise with him? I mean, I'm interested. I want to know. Okay, Papa Bear asked, how many years ago was Adam and Eve? And Jazz says approximately 7,000 years. And yes, that's totally correct. That modern-day Adam and Eve came upon the scene about 7,000 years ago, and that we are almost at the fulfillment of the 70 weeks of Daniel, which, for those that want to know more about that, please refer to the Star of Bethlehem show that I did just a couple weeks back. Okay. All right, so I want to know, and I think you should want to know too. And so that's why I read all these other texts. They give just a little bit more detail on what's not being said. And it gives full detail on how it was that Adam and Eve were not created on the earth, but were created in paradise, and that they fell from paradise to the wilderness of the earth and were placed in a place called the Cave of Treasures. And that it was on the earth and after the 8th day, after their bodies were transformed into flesh, that all the prophecies of Genesis 3 were then fulfilled. Because Eve was actually raped by the archons, by Satan, according to the text, once she was transformed into flesh, and she was impregnated by Cain. Which, of course, most people can't see that in the text either. But, most people can't see pre-existence and predestination within the Old and the New Testament either. And it's there. So I just wanted to address that question real quick. And there's a complete difference between paradise and where we are now on this planet. We're in a fallen state. Our flesh is a fallen form. We're angelic souls caught up in flesh form. We're trapped in a fallen world, in a fallen state. We're caught up on a prison planet surrounded by devils and demons. And that this world is ruled by Lucifer and his minions. That they are the powers, the principalities, and the rulers of darkness. And that the garden where paradise and New Jerusalem are, and where the Father and the Word are, is not this planet, or at least not yet. And so that right there should be key to let you know that we fell from somewhere else. And, if we fell from the Father's garden and from the Father's paradise, and we find ourselves living in flesh form in a dual nature world where we are living and learning through the full spectrum of duality, pain and pleasure and suffering, and we see how evil rules in this world and how the New World Order are being allowed to carry out and fulfill their agenda in the despicable and evil and grotesque manner that they behave themselves in. But it's all because they have temporary reign. And that this world is their kingdom to rule. For the short time they are given that authority. Woe, woe, woe to the earth. The devil comes down to you with wrath, knowing his time is short. You know? All right, so I wanted to touch upon a text that would give a little bit more clarity on the Brotherhood of Darkness. Okay. I'm sorry, I was just reading in the chat room. There's a lot of great conversation going on, and I really appreciate everybody being cordial to each other. And I am keeping a monitor, so if you have questions, just paste them there. But I wanted to touch upon this text. I'm just going to read this one scroll from the Emerald Tablet of Thought. And this particular passage gives you insight. And this particular book was supposedly written by Thoth, who was one of the Atlanteans and that lived and was witness to the destruction of Atlantis. And that after the destruction of Atlantis, he and some of his group went to Egypt and helped the children of Kim to establish that culture and that civilization. And again, this is all prior to the creation of modern-day Adam and Eve. And how it was that after the destruction of Atlantis, or Poseidia, or Pan, or Waga, there's many different names for them, that they split off and went in 4 different directions. And so there were groups that went to different parts of the world after this cataclysm, after this destruction. And so, Emerald Tablet 6, the Key of Magic. This is going to be very interesting for those that have never heard it, that have never studied it. Let me make this comment here, too, before we read it, just to give you a little bit of background on the tablets themselves. Because if you've not heard about, just a little bit from the Wikipedia. The Emerald Tablet, also known as the Sumerian Table, Tabula Sumeriana, or the Secret of Hermes, is a text purporting to reveal the secret of primordial substance and its transmutations. It claims to be the work of Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary Hellenistic combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Now, to make mention of the translation, the textual history, according to what it says. Now, this goes back, this is supposedly an eyewitness account of the destruction of Atlantis. So, 50 to 13,000 BC is the supposed timeline for Atlantis. But the textual history says, the oldest documentable source of the text is the Kitab Sir al-Asra, a compendium advice for rulers in Arabic, which purports to be a letter from Aristotle to Alexander the Great. This work was translated into Latin as Secretum Secretorium, the Secret of Secrets, by Johannes Hispanesa, or Hispanesis, John of Seville, circa 1140 or 1243 by Philip of Tripoli. And that in the 14th century, the alchemist Ortolanus wrote a substantial exegesis on the secret of Hermes, which was influential in the subsequent development of alchemy. Many manuscripts of this copy of the Emerald Tablet and the commentary of Ortolanus survive, dating at least as far back as the 15th century. The tablet has also been found appended to manuscripts of the Kitab Ustugus al-Us al-Thani, the second book of the Elements of the Foundation, attributed to Jabir ibn Hayyan, and the Kitab Sir al-Khalika Wasan al-Tali Tabiyah, or the Book of the Secrets of the Creation and the Art of Nature, dated between 650 and 830 A.D. All right, so we know that the text is ancient, and it goes back to, according to here, references back to as early as 650 A.D. And that what I'm going to be reading from is an account from one of these Atlanteans. All right, going into it. Hark ye, O man, to the wisdom of magic. Hark to the knowledge of powers forgotten long, long ago in the days of the first man. Warfare began between darkness and light. The first man, remember this. Warfare began between darkness and light. Men then, as now, were filled with both darkness and light. And while in some darkness held sway, in others light filled the soul. Age old is this warfare, the eternal struggle between darkness and light. Fiercely is it fought all through the ages, using strange powers hidden to man. Adepts have there been filled with the blackness, struggling always against the light. But others there are who, filled with brightness, have ever conquered the darkness of night. Wherever ye may be in all ages and planes, surely ye shall know of the battle with night. Long ages ago, the sons of the morning, descending, found the world filled with night. There in the past time began the struggle, the age-old battle of darkness and light. Many in that time were so filled with darkness that only feebly flamed the light from the night. Some there were, masters of darkness, who sought to fill all with their darkness. They sought to draw others into their night. Fiercely withstood they, the masters of brightness. Fiercely fought they from the darkness of night. Sought they ever to tighten the fetters, the chains that bind man to the darkness of night. Used they always the dark magic, brought into man by the power of darkness, magic that enshrouded man's soul with darkness, banded together in as order, brothers of darkness. They through the ages, antagonists, they to the children of men, walk they always secret and hidden, found yet not found by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night. Silently, secretly, use they their power, enslaving and binding the souls of men. We'll stop here. Emphasize this paragraph for just a minute. Because this right here gives you the whole idea of organized secret society, coming together, how it is that they are not like the children of men, and how it is that they utilize their secrecy and how they hide in the shadows and in the darkness to use their powers to manipulate and to work over so that they can silently and secretly enslave and bind the souls of men. Now, is that not just the most evil intent and conspiring that a group can do against their fellow mankind? But we know that they are not like the children of men, and that these beings are dealing with the ancient aliens or the Anunnaki or the fallen angels, and that they are in relationship with these powers and principalities, and that they are in fact possessed and ruled over by them. And so it's important for you to understand the serious nature of their collective organization and their dedication to evil and their pursuit, the organized structure, and the order out of chaos, the controlled push of the world towards the tipping point, or their order out of chaos, their new world order. Because that's where they're putting us to. That's why the wars have been fomented. That's why there's a third global war in the cards. It's already been spoken about. It's already been planned for. It's already being orchestrated. The pieces are being moved around even right now. And that the trigger is going to be the descent and the conflagration, the fanning of the flames between the Christian and the Muslim faith, and the war between Israel and Palestine. Remember, it's all controlled opposition. Don't pick a side because you're just going to be manipulated. You got to realize that there are no sides. There's one side. There's an agenda. That's it. Continuing. Unseen they come and unseen they go. Man in his ignorance calls them from below. Dark is the way of the dark brothers. Travel dark with a darkness not of the night. Traveling over earth, they walk through man's dreams. They walk through man's dreams. Powers have they gained from the darkness around them to call other dwellers from out of their plane in ways that are dark and unseen by man. So here it's speaking of them conjuring forth these unseen powers, these principalities, these rulers of darkness, and how it is through ritual and intent. And this is exactly what Solomon did when he was given the ring of power, and he was able to control these beings. He was manipulated by that power. He gave himself to it. And see here, it says how they have the ability to walk through man's dreams and how they can gain power from this darkness, and that they're able to conjure and call up dwellers from other planes. This is some serious dark magic. This is some serious black magic. This isn't just play around with your Ouija board type. This is you put your life at risk and death conjuring up demons you may not even then be able to control. Continuing. Into man's mind space reached the dark brothers. Around it they closed the veil of their night. There through its lifetime that soul dwells in bondage, bound by the fetters of the veil of the night. Mighty are they in the forbidden knowledge, forbidden because it is one with the night. Does that not sound like zombieism, soul possession? You know, that whole there through its lifetime that soul dwells in bondage, bound by the fetters of the veil of night. Mighty are they in the forbidden knowledge, forbidden because it is one with the night. I mean, this is some very seriously dark stuff. And this is the kind of ritual, the kind of magic that the elites give themselves to. And they are in so deep that they sacrifice children. They eat the flesh. They drink the blood. And it's not a big secret. They're feeding these demons. And these demons demand blood. They have for thousands of years. Let me check the chat room real quick, and then I'll continue on. These beings are very, very dark and evil. These are the kind of beings that come forth when people are doing bath salts and, you know, these psychoactive drugs where they can't control themselves. I want to welcome everybody that has been coming in. We've got a lot of new listeners. Just want to acknowledge you. Greg Rift, I think. Let There Be Light is here. Mustang Sally, Jasmine, Ran, Truth Now. And there's a bunch in the chat room that I can't see. Map is here. Mama B. Papa Bear. Peace 333. Welcome, Joanne, sister. Gray, all the guests that are numbered, Voice in the Wilderness. And Watcher Ruth. Welcome, sister. God bless all of you. I pray that the Lord is watching over each one of you and leading you in discernment and guiding you in your life and leading you in closer relationship to Him. Yeah, Greg, we've covered that one many times. Genesis 4:1. I've covered it many times. You have to go listen to the shows. All right, continuing on. Emerald Tablets. On the Brothers of Darkness. Hark ye, O man, and list to my warning. Be ye free from the bondage of night. Surrender not your soul to the Brothers of Darkness. Keep thy face ever turned toward the light. Know ye not, O man, that your sorrow only has come through the veil of the night. Hey, man, heed my warning. Strive ever upward. Turn your soul toward the light. For well know they that those who have traveled far towards the sun on their pathway of light have great and yet greater power to bind with darkness the children of light. List ye, O man, to he who comes to you, but weigh in the balance if his words be of light. That's good advice for all of us. That's basically like, test the spirits. Believe nobody. Let's read that again. List ye, O man, to he who comes to you, but weigh in the balance if his words be of light. For many there are who walk in dark brightness, and yet are not the children of light. Easy it is to follow their pathway, easy to follow the path that they lead. But yes, O man, heed ye my warning. Light comes only to him who strives. Hard is the pathway that leads to wisdom. Hard is the pathway that leads to the light. Many shall ye find the stones in your pathway, many the mountains to climb toward the light. Yet know ye, O man, to him that overcometh, free will he be of the pathway of light. Follow ye not the dark brothers ever. Always be ye a child of the light. For know ye, O man, in the end of light must conquer, and darkness and night be banished from light. All right, this is going to give you a little insight into how it is that even though the dark brothers, the Brotherhood, the sons of Belial, how it was that they organized in their rebellion, and how it was that they organized in these secret societies so that they could pass on this knowledge and control. And because, you know, they wanted to create a slave race. That was their intent. But the other side of it was the sons of light, the sons of the law, the sons of the order, how it was that they also established their own organizations, their own societies, and their own movement to protect and to preserve. But they later were also infiltrated and corrupted. So all the secret societies became corrupted. But just to give you insight on the other side of it. Listen, O man, and heed ye this wisdom. Even as darkness, so is the light. When darkness is vanished and all veils are rendered, out there shall flash from the darkness the light. Even as exist among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. Antagonists they are the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers have they, mighty and potent. Knowing the law the planets obey, work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man's soul from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also. Known not are they to the children of men, yet know that ever they walk with thee. Showing the way to the children of men, ever have they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end, yet always light shall in the end be master, driving away the darkness of night. Amen. Know ye this knowing, always beside thee walk the children of light. Masters they of the sun power, ever unseen, yet the guardians of men. Open to all is their pathways, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark amente, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sun are they and lords of the morning, children of light to shine among men. Like man are they, and yet are unlike. Never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness eternal throughout all space since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with all the one. Up from the first space, formed and unformed. I want to speak on this. These are the sons of God, the sons of morning, that have always, since their creation, since they're being brought up with the Father. And this is the pre-existence that we also share with them, except for they still serve in their fullness as the sons of God and the sons of morning. And we're speaking about like the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Phanuel, those that are of the elect, that are of the cherubim that fought for the Father in the war in heaven, that did not take on the embodiments of flesh, that some of them may yet still come in flesh form, that they also have the election and the capacity to incarnate into flesh form. But not all of them have, nor is it required of them. They are, in their fullness, still united with the remembrance of who they are. And they are still empowered in their original immortality, in their original bright-natured, light-vestured being, in their hermaphroditic angelic being, in their service as angels in the morning star administration of the Father and the Son. And so, yes, these are the sons of the law, the sons of the light, the sons of the order, that it says right here, like man are they, and yet are unlike. Remember how the angels went to Lot to warn him? How they broke bread with him, ate? How they looked as men? All right, let's continue on. I think actually we're going to stop with that. We're going to stop with that, and I'm going to just make commentary, and I'll read from the chat room. And if anybody has questions, I'll address that. But you see, let's take this back to the beginning as well. Let's go ahead and talk about the division, the enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And we'll go back to the garden and what happened. We'll explain this a little bit too. Oh, wait. Rand has a question here. How did we end up like this? Did we sit on the fence during the heavenly wars and Yah gave us another chance to choose this day? Good question, Rand. And I'm going to tell you, here's the answer. Not everybody in the flesh was particularly a fence sitter, nor was of what we call the Laodicean church now, or those that are in comfort and oblivious to make a decision one way or the other, that are not pushed to the point where they are uncomfortable enough to have to make decisions of faith. That in their comforts and in their luxuries, they are relegated to the distractions and the entertainments of life, and comfortable with it and not having to look any further into anything, in any deeper aspects of life and being and our reasons for being here. But there are many now. Remember the statement, the first will be the last. It's mentioned many times within the scripture in the Old and the New Testament. Well, what this is speaking about is talking about how it would be that some of the first world age spirits, those that were of the elect, those that were of the those that served the Father, even in the war in heaven, even that sided with Michael and the cherubim angels, and that did do a service and fought for the Father, that they also are going to incarnate into the flesh during this time. That it is during this, the last generation, the fig tree generation, that these particular beings would incarnate into flesh to fulfill role. And that their election is to be a catalyst for what would be the movement and the fulfillment and the glorification of the Father and the Son in this, the last day and age. That there are going to be many that are going to wake up to their remembrance of themselves and who they are, and embracing and acknowledging that part of themselves, and accepting the responsibility for it. That these people are going to stand themselves up in such way that the Father and the Son are going to utilize them as vessels for glorification of themselves, glorification of their will and their destiny and their agenda for the collective, the masses, the world, the people. And that there was going to be a massive movement of this and a grand awakening, and that is indeed unfolding, and that you are part of that, because you are waking up to your first estate, and you are in the process of assuming the awareness of and the remembrance of who you are, and becoming empowered. You are accepting the responsibility for that higher purpose, for that higher reason for being here, and for completing your mission, for fulfilling your first estate, and fulfilling your duty to the Father and the Son. And for those of you that are embracing this, that are siding with this aspect of yourself, God bless you. God bless you. And the more of you that choose to do this, the better. God bless each and every one of you that do choose to seek the kingdom first and to serve the Father and the Son as the most important thing. And there's a lot of you now, and it gives me great hope to see an army of awakened angels in the flesh coming to remembrance on who they are, so that they can affect this world in positivity and bring beautiful Dharma and pay that forward to all people everywhere. And even though we know that the New World Order and the forces of darkness, that they're going to have great success in their agenda, and that they're going to bring this world to its knees, and that we are going to be witness to times like we have not been witness to since the days of Noah, since the foundations of the world. And that unless the days be shortened, there should be no flesh left. That we're going to be witness to some critical times. That we're also going to be witness to an incredible miracle. And we're going to be part of that. We're going to be part of doing the work of bringing those miracles to manifestation and to fulfillment. And so God bless each one of you for standing yourself up to that and allowing yourself to be utilized by the Father and the Son in such capacity. Rand says, thank you, Zen and Brother John, who confirmed what I knew in my spirit. You're so very welcome. Rand also has, did he preordain who would be awake in this life? Rand, yes, that is part of it. But we have responsibility for that awakening as well. And that we have part to play within it. And that even though, the things have been set in such a way, we still are given free will. We still are given ability to act and to rebel if we so desire. And that if we were to turn our back on this knowledge, it says that it would be better for us to never have been born. And for those that do turn their back on this knowledge, or that utilize such wisdom in way for selfish gain or for the harm or manipulation of others, especially these priests that are using their power and their authority to abuse kids, what do you think you deserve? Really? I mean, what kind of punishment would you met out to your own self? And for these sick elitists that think they're above the law and can do all things and that they don't have to pay any justice for it, judgment is coming. The harvest is coming. We are at the end. It's all unfolding. So, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk to have even a lifetime of pleasure and, being able to impose your will and on others and to oppress others and to and treat others harshly? I mean, is it really worth it? It doesn't even feel good. How does that feel good? I like to do what feels good. Sharing joy with others. Helping others. And your soul lets you know. Your soul knows when you're doing good, when you're walking the narrow way, when you're following the commandments, when you're honoring the Father and the Son in all the ways that they ask us to do. It feels good. Greg asked, are we angels? Yes, we are, Greg. We are angels. We had part in the first estate, and we are now incarnated into the flesh, but we are still angelic. We're just don't remember. And yes, we're going to return to our first estate. Remember, that's what all of this is about. Salvation is a return to our first estate. It's a remembrance of who we were, how it is we came to be in the flesh, how it is we ended up falling and being in flesh form, and why it was that Christ had to come into the flesh, why it was that he incarnated of Adam's line, why it was that he crushed the head of the serpent, how he was that he was the fulfillment of that. I got a beautiful story to share with you, because many of you don't know this as well. The enmity of the serpent, King James Version of the Bible, chapter 3:15, where it talks about the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. Let me just pull this up to get it exactly, because I want to reveal something to you for those that may not know this. And this is incredible confirmation as to how Christ was the Son of God and how he was the fulfillment and how he was to be the one that would bring salvation and redemption to the world. All right, let's go to this. 3:15, it says this. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. All right, explaining this. The enmity between the seed of the woman and between the seed of the serpent. The seed of the woman is the seed of Seth, the line of Adam, through Seth, because Abel was killed by his brother who was the firstborn son of the devil. And Cain and his line, they're excluded from the line of Adam. And they represent the seed of the serpent. And it was the line of Cain that became involved with following Satan, worshiping the fallen angels, establishing idolatry and paganism, blood ritual, the victim sacrifice, offering up of blood, cannibalism. All these abominable things are associated with the line of Cain. And that the line of Cain was also the ones that fornicated with the Watchers during the time of Yared when they descended to the earth. And that the line of Cain became, they were already a hybrid line because they were a result of Eve and Lucifer, but they became an even more hybrid line when the Watchers and their DNA got interjected into the line of Cain. And we know that that resulted in the giants being born upon the earth, right? We know the giants, right? So remember the story of David and Goliath. How Goliath was this Philistine, and the Philistines worshipped Dagon. And Dagon was a god that was associated to Oannes, and Oannes was this hybrid fish god who I have already traced back and told you is connected to the Nakash of Genesis chapter 3, or the feathered serpent, who is the embodiment of Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, the Naga, that the Indians worship. I mean, it's all the same thing. The feathered serpent, the dragon, Oannes, and Dagon. So they worship their father Satan. And that Dagon is just another embodiment, a representation of Satan, or Enki-Ea, as represented by his Sumerian name. His Egyptian name is Ptah, P-T-A-H. His Greek name is Poseidon. His Roman name is Neptune. Same God. Okay? All right. Now, when the Watchers mated with the daughters of Cain, they created the race of giants, going to David and Goliath. When David killed Goliath, because I know I'm running out of time, when David killed Goliath and used his own sword to chop off his head, he took the sword of Goliath and he took the head of Goliath and he went to Jerusalem. And when he got to Jerusalem, he buried the head of Goliath there in Jerusalem at a place called Golgotha. And that Golgotha, that not only does it mean the hill of the skull, but why did it get the name the hill of the skull? And whose skull did it get its name after? Golgotha means Goliath of Gath. And so Goliath's skull was buried on Golgotha when Christ was crucified on the cross on that particular mount. And that on the day of his crucifixion, when he was put on the cross, that he was crushing the head of Goliath, who was one of the hybrid children and a seed of the serpent. And that Christ, Yahushua, Savior, Messiah, being the promised one, the Lion of Judah, of the seed of the woman and of the line of Seth and Adam, was he that was going to crush the head of the serpent. As it was bruising thy head, thou shalt bruise his heel. And so do you see how there you have further confirmation and further fulfillment as to the two lines? Now I know, okay, one other thing, I got to bring this up since we have some that don't follow the line of Cain thing. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 13. Because this is one of those times when Christ sends away the multitude, and he's actually speaking to his apostles in clarity and in detail. And he says, I'm not going to tell you in parable form, I'm going to just tell you that straight out what this means. And they ask him what the parable of the wheat and the tares means. And now this is the same kind of teachings that you're going to get when you read the Nag Hammadi Codices about the return of Christ and his resurrection, the 40 days. I'm going to be doing a show about this. The next show is going to be about this, so we'll talk more about this. But the teachings that Christ brought back to his apostles during those 40 days are just mind-blowing. They're full of incredible information that most people don't understand because they don't understand all these other little secrets that are hidden within the Word. All right, here we go. All right, then Jesus, verse 36, Matthew chapter 13. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and the disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. So he's saying he is the one that sows the good seed, the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy, this is important, the enemy that sowed them is the devil. He's telling you here that the devil indeed has his own children on the planet and that he indeed did sire them. And this is the line of Cain. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the field, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and them which do iniquity, and cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Also, remember how Christ gives the parable about the farmer and his field, and how it was that somebody crept in unawares and sowed tares in his field? Same thing. It's a representation of Lucifer seducing Eve in paradise and causing our fall in our collective incarnation into the flesh. So, I will cover more, get more into all of this on the next show, because I'm going to cover the lost 40 years, and I'm going to detail some of the teachings that Christ gave to his apostles after his resurrection. And the incredible nature, the profound nature of the revelation that we'll be bringing forth in that show, in talking about the archons and the fallen angels, and how it is that they are at war against us, how they are still at war, the enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. Let there be light says, always remember a symbol or sign is unless it is a talisman. The cross represents the X chromosome, DNA, and when we see depictions of Jesus on it, he makes a Y chromosome. Remember that Satan calls himself the morning star, but Jesus is the true morning star. Absolutely. Lucifer is a counterfeit. Absolutely. And that I explain this too in my book and in my work, how it was on the second day when the light was called forth by the voice, the authoritative voice of the Father, who said, "Let there be light." This was the moment that Christ, as the morning star, was revealed to not only the angels, but to all of creation. And that he, as the light of the universe, then brought creation into visibility. And this was the moment that the sons of God shouted for joy at the revealing of the morning star, who he is. Christ is the real and true morning star. And that Lucifer is just a counterfeit. He wanted to be as the Most High. He wanted to ascend to the sides of the north and to place his throne and elevate himself against the seat of God. And for that, he was cast out. For that, he was banished. And for that, he led a rebellion, and 1/3 of the angels joined him. And we've been fighting that war ever since. That war is being continued out. Is being continued out right now in the flesh, in our bodies, because we're dealing with the angels of righteousness and the angels of unrighteousness. That both of these voices and both of these spirits are contained within the dual and binary nature of our spirit, mind, body, soul. So the war is within, people. And you are determining each day, each moment, each second, who it is you choose to serve. You cannot serve two masters. You have to, or you can be complacent, be the Laodicean church, and decide not to serve one way or the other, and that still is a choice, and still will reflect in consequence. Read about the Laodicean church in Revelation. See why it was that they, being lukewarm, were spewed out of the mouth of Christ. That living in their comfort and in their luxury, they never reached the point where they made a decision one way or the other as to the larger questions on life and being. Does that not sound familiar to where we are? Is this not that generation? It's 90 seconds. I just pray that the Lord wake and reveal all of you to who you are, and I hope that each one of you embrace that aspect of self. God bless all. In Yahushua's name, I pray. Amen.
What exactly would you say if your child looked up at you and asked you about God and if he exists and if he's true, and wondered what would happen when someone dies? Is there a heaven? And what about that man up on the cross? Am I forgiven? How exactly would you answer those hopeful little lies when you're college educated and convinced it's all a lie? Sure, you went to Sunday school when you were young, but that was then. You're above those simple thoughts now. The only God you know is man. Are you saddened and ashamed to tell this little soul that you don't believe in anything and have no reason and no hope? There's no heaven and no meaning. There's no purpose to our lives. Did you believe or just evolve? Random mutations come alive. You know better than an insect, son, and when you die, that's it. I've learned through education that good and bad just don't exist. It's all just evolution is survival of the fittest, and we can get you a prescription when your life becomes depressed. I'm sorry that I've crumbled all your hopes and all your dreams, but it's time you realize that life's not what it seems. Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created your own truth? A happy atheist? Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created your own truth? A happy atheist? You realize your answers could just shatter all these dreams and everything that ever mattered to this precious little being who had belief in certain peace and received that inner voice inside his conscience, and his conscious mind believes, and it sickens you to think, cause you've been driven by your ego and your greed, and he sees that you don't practice what you preach. You've lost your dignity, and you've succeeded in destroying all beliefs and defeated all his real hopes and dreams. They might never be retrieved, and the flame within his heart almost completely is extinguished, and the holes within his soul are filled with mimics, and the message of God's grace within his mind has been diminished, because the answers that you gave him took a piece of his existence, and the power of your words were unforeseen, and in that very moment you destroyed the very purpose of his being, and now he's lost and alone, and he's convinced that life does not make sense, and he's forgotten that God even exists. He's replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created his own truth. A happy atheist. Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created your own truth? A happy atheist. Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created your own truth? A happy atheist.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers. Your host, Ben Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv, and we're 2 days out from 2013, and we're ending the year on a very somber note for my family. I want to give mention and prayer and send love and honor and gratitude to my father-in-law, or what is closest to my being a father-in-law that I've ever had, Bert, and to Cynthia and to Stacy and her family as they're gathered together in honor of Bert, Justin's grandfather, and Justin, I know, wished that he could have been there with family, but he was unable to. He's serving active duty in military, and so is not able to be with the family, but I know he's there in spirit, and so I just wanted to share a poem for Bert and for the family. To my brother, father-in-law, mentor, and friend, Bert, all have gathered to pay respects, to wish you well in Thanksgiving, for all the years that you have so selflessly given of yourself to raise the many lost souls you found looking up to you for guidance. Never one to say no. You and your wife Cynthia were, are, and have been the bedrock, anchor, and foundation of stability for so many of us that have relied on your assistance over the years while wayward and rebellious pursuits. You are the best of men, a shining example of goodness and decency for all of those that have followed your lead. Know that we have learned well from your example. I pray we are able to live up to your standard, care for each other and one another the way that the Father would have us to do one unto another. Your rewards are in heaven. Fear nothing. You fought the good fight, enduring overwhelming struggle. Know now that the angels of righteousness await to bring you home. Enduring struggle to raise family and beauty the best way you knew how. Paradise awaits your return as it does us all. We will all be together again without doubt, nor will it be long. We love you, Bert. One of the best men I've ever known. A father, mentor, and grand struggle is largely unnecessary, or not unnecessary, but unnecessary in such way that one is putting themselves at risk just trying to make it and manage. Whether that's by having to do jobs that risk, your health and well-being, or whether you have to put yourself in an environment where over time without a doubt that you are putting yourself at risk. And so now, with what has been imposed upon the world, with the standard of living having been degraded in such a way that the wealth of the economies of the world have been stripped away and stolen. And in the process, the retirements, the hopes and the dreams of so many people have been dashed. The inheritances of so many youth have been dashed, and now they see nothing but the smoking remnants of what used to be a society that provided well for its people. And because of the austerity measures, and because they know that the criminals have not been charged in any way, and that the politicians are in bed with them, and that the measures are being forced upon them without their opinions or without their, without their active participation, that their lives are being put at risk. And that this is coming home to America, people. We're 2 days. In 2 days, we, as a country, go over the fiscal cliff. And this is the point of recognizable no return for the American economy and for the government's ability to pay back its debt. And so this will be the death spiral for America, because what happens when your creditors no longer have faith in your ability to pay back on the loans you have procured, and they think you're going to default, your rating gets cut and dropped. And your ability to borrow money, especially cheaply, which this has been a very low interest environment, and this is being done purposely. All this low interest debt that is being incurred right now. The reason they are lavishing, Father, to so many. Thank you for helping to raise my son. He is a reflection of you as part of life and legacy. Almost home. Say hello to my parents and to our recently passed friends, loved ones. We love you all and will dearly miss you in your parting. Our only comfort, knowing that reunion is not long in coming. The Father and the Son celebrate your return with merriment, peace, and rejoicing. They too have missed you in parting. God bless you, Bert. And so I appreciate everybody joining us for today's broadcast. I'm going to be speaking about the Brotherhood of Darkness and to cover what is the beginning of the secret societies and those powers that have aligned and organized themselves against humanity. That seek at every turn to harm the collective will in the struggle of the masses. Especially now, with the world being plunged into financial terror and the darkness of what seems like impending economic collapse, and at least stagnation to the point where people are restless because they have no hope, because they have no jobs and no way of providing for their families and for taking part in society and culture and for giving back in some way and providing a service, a benefit to humanity. Everybody, wants to be good in some way at something that you can put your energy and devote your time to, that will provide enough money to sustain life and comfort in such way that all this debt on all these nations at such low interest is because when the defaults start happening and the credit ratings start to decimate and countries are forced to borrow money at higher interest rates, it's going to devastate economies. Devastate economies. Jazz says those in power are pure evil. It's all a game. And she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right, people. You have to realize that we're dealing with a matrix. We are living in a matrix, and what has been brought up as real world, the 9 to 5, the corporate, the whole consumerism and materialism and growth, endless growth, importing and exporting and trade, and how that would sustain and provide a better world and fulfill everybody's hopes and dreams. It's that whole dream is failing. The American dream, the material dream, the global dream that they presented to everybody everywhere, the capitalism and the idea that everybody can be wealthy and prosperous at the expense of environment and creatures and even ourselves. The dream is breaking down. And it's about time, really, because you can't do that as a creature. You cannot overconsume and destroy everything you touch. You have to have respect for the environment that you live in and that you depend upon. Now, when I talk about environmentalism, I am not talking about like sustainability to the point that, you know, they want to depopulate the world and their answer for saving the environment is to get rid of the people, because that's the extremism of, environmentalism and green, being green, is that the green agenda really at the top side, even like the World Wildlife Federation, Greenpeace, these different organizations, they have been funded and created and are controlled by the elitists. Even like the United Nations, you know, the elites fund, organize, and create and build up these organizations so that they have reputation. And after they have long history, after they've been in existence for enough time, they have instant credibility. And so it's control.
Blog Talk Radio.